from the Crypt.
What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Tales from the Crypt. It's your boy Marty Bent. We're in the year 2018. It's been a few weeks since we met here on the internet. Sorry for the hiatus. Had to take some time off, recalibrate. It was a crazy 2017 in the crypto markets. Bitcoin specifically, altcoins more heavily towards the end of the year and the beginning of this year. It's totally been chaotic. There's been crazy altcoin pumps in the first couple weeks, or first week of the year. We're not even a week in yet, and towards the end of last year. But today, as you all know, we do this here at Barstool Sports Radio, in Barstool Sports Studios. And as some of you may know, there's a lot of characters in this office. This is an office of characters. And one of which I'm very interested in from a Bitcoin perspective, because he has a better perspective than all of us when it comes to money and how it can be bad, how it may be good, and how Bitcoin may help. He's not a Bitcoin expert per se, but he's experienced some monetary turmoil in his life. I want to introduce you all to Za. Za, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Marty. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about the Zimbabwean currencies and Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you taking some time out of your Friday afternoon. I'm sorry I did not bring any alcohol today. I usually feed my guest alcohol. I did not bring any today.
That would have been awesome. Nah, it's all right. It's all right. It's actually my New Year's resolution not to drink. I had a very tough New Year's Eve.
Yeah, what happened?
Oh, man. One of my friends was actually in town from Zimbabwe. We went to high school together, and so I had to take him out in the city, and we had a good time New Year's Eve. And then that New Year's Day, my resolution was I'm not gonna drink. So I'll see how long I can keep that up.
I think about 80 to 90% of the people in this country had that same resolution. That's usually what happens. You get the massive hangover, and it's like, I never want to drink again.
Well, I'm about 5 days in, so I think I'm doing pretty good. Usually, it's out the door by now, but I'm 5 days in and keeping strong.
I think I've been good, too. I've been good this week. I tried to go lay off the sauce for the first week back.
There you go.
But I'm pretty sure I'm gonna negate that tonight.
Exactly. It's the first weekend, actually, after New Year's Eve, so we'll see. This is the true test, actually.
It is. It really is. And I am weak-minded. I'm not going to be able to contain myself. But yeah, so, again, I wanted to bring you in. You're from Zimbabwe.
Yes, sir.
So you moved here 8 years ago now.
8 years ago, 2010. Yeah, from Zimbabwe.
2010
to study finance.
Study finance. Where'd you go to school?
I went to school in Tampa, University of Tampa.
Awesome.
Shout out the Spartans.
So you're not used to this bomb cyclone weather?
No. So these are actually my snow boots. So for those that can't see this, my snow boots are a pair of Nike Free Runs.
Yeah.
Just do not do well as snow boots.
Yeah, they're not really water resistant.
Yeah, not at all. So yeah, that was a rookie move on my part. I learned yesterday when I had to go pick up Dave's lunch, and there was piles of snow that were like waist high, and
it's yeah. I mean, I used to live in Chicago, and this is very reminiscent of Chicago weather. I think Chicago's a little worse than New York right now, but it hasn't been this cold on the East Coast in a while.
Yeah, so I hear. So no, immediately after yesterday, I put in an order on Amazon for a pair of snow boots.
I'm actually going to do the same. I'm rocking Vans right now. My boots from last season are actually destroyed, so I need to pick up a new one. I've been slacking on that. But away from weather and back to monetary talk. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this is why I brought you in. I was telling Za before the show that I had Santiago Siri on from Argentina. He had a very interesting story about how they had bouts of hyperinflation and political turmoil throughout his life, and sort of how Bitcoin can fix these problems. And I thought it would be great to have you in the studio to talk about Zimbabwe's story, sort of how it got to the point of hyperinflation there, and the political situation with Robert Mugabe and everything that's sort of happening with that right now, because the last few years.
Yeah. I guess it's happening right now. Yeah. I mean, though he's out, it's happening right now. But yeah, no, we just to dive into just a little bit of history economically from the Zimbabwe. We got our independence in 1980, and we were dubbed the breadbasket of Africa. So we were meant to be the model state in Africa. Everybody look at Zimbabwe; they're great. They're gonna do great in the future and all that. And we had all the ingredients for a healthy, successful, healthy economy. We had a lot of mineral rich. The workforce was very educated. I don't know if we still do, but at one point for a very long time we had the highest literacy rate in Africa and all that good stuff. So we were the model state, the one to look at. And for the first Mugabe, as you mentioned, President Mugabe was president from independence.
Was it representative democracy at this point?
Yes. Yes, you know what? I think it was more. Say, let's for lack of better terms, I don't mean this in a mean way or whatever. It was more say, all right, let's just get the white man out. Kind of deal, right? Yeah. So we would at that point. I mean, if you're going through colonialism, you'd understand. At that point, anyone that exerted some sort of leadership qualities and all that, and if you were just black, people would follow you. Kind of deal. I felt like that. Well, at least that's my opinion. And Mugabe was there. He was the right man. Well, right place, right time kind of guy. He himself didn't actually fight in the liberation struggle. He was under arrest for most of the time and all that, but he came in, he was educated, he wasn't like a guerrilla type, and so they were like, all right, people backed him. They were like, all right, you lead us, and kind of. So when he took over economically, we were doing, the British left us in very good shape. And for the first, I would say for the first 10 years, so from 1980 to 1990, we were doing very well.
And so was there any like term limits or anything over there? Or was he just elected like?
So when they came in, I think we took over the constitution that the British had left initially, and as he went through his term, that's when they started making changes to the actual constitution. So they made changes to the constitution that allowed him to be president pretty much for 37 years.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so
were the people mad when that happened, or was he a good leader up to that point? They're like, yeah.
Initially, as because the economy was doing great and all that, though. I mean, every leader has his good and his bad. So when he took over, he's from the major tribe in Zimbabwe. When he took over, he went and he pretty much to consolidate his power. The first move that he did, I think the operation started in 1983, if I'm not mistaken. Is he went and he conducted pretty much a genocide against the other less dominant tribe, just to consolidate his power. So that's the major black mark from his early years that he has to his name, that people thing. But apart from that, economically we were doing great. We still had a lot of the white guys didn't leave immediately. The part of the deal when we broke it, the independence from the British was you slowly ease in. So we still had white people still. Well, part of the white people from the previous colonial government still part of the government structures.
They're
and
still
all that,
hanging
helping
around.
out helping. It was more of a
transitional period.
That's the term I was looking for. Thank you for helping me out. It was more of a transitional period where they were still very active and all that, and that's when we're doing great. And then so
this is like mid 80s.
Yeah, this is mid 80s. So actually throughout the 80s. And then I was born in 1990, and we were doing pretty awesome. Till about, I'd say, probably 1996. That's when the first
there was a global currency crisis, Latin American, Russian currency crisis. There was a lot of currency crisis around there.
I actually had no idea, because that's actually when all of a sudden the highest denomination for our notes in Zimbabwe at that point was a $50 note. Then all of a sudden, you see, we start they produced $100 note of Zimbabwean currency. So still when we had our own currency. So those were the early signs that only probably the experts, the economists and all that could start seeing. Everything else was a gradual inflation. So people didn't.
It's like the boiling of the frog analogy.
Exactly.
You can put a frog in water, and if it's laying in that water and you start boiling, it won't realize that it's boiling until it's dead.
Then now into the late 90s. to the early 2000s, that's when you could see that there's something up. That's when, it slowly started going up. And
so was there any justification for the printing of the higher denominated notes? Was the economy suffering and they said we need to print more money, dump it in to help stoke growth, or was it more just trying to buy goods outside of Zimbabwe?
Early stages, I really don't think so. But towards the end of the 90s, early 2000s, yes, that's when you could see that the economy was, it was struggling a little bit. That's when, more printing. Next thing we have a $100 note. Next thing we have a $500 note, $1,000 note, and all that.
It got up to $1 trillion, right?
And that was at the end. That was towards the end. We'll get to that. But yeah, so what triggered our downfall is that whole the selfishness now, the whole racial, going back to the colonial times. All right, let's kick the white man out completely.
Okay.
So the manner in which and how Africa was colonized was when the white man came. Right, what he did excellently, because as a human being you look out for your own interests, and you think what he did, what the colonizers did excellently was they pretty much made sure that going into the future, us, the indigenous people, would for us to succeed, we would need to rely on them. So they didn't teach us their techniques as to how to farm well, how to do this well, and all that. They segregated us. There were schools for black people and white people only, that type of stuff. So that happened.
They created dependency.
They created that dependency. And now when the government said, let's have, we want our land, we want the whole country now. They kicked out those white people that occupied the very productive farms that were the backbone. Agriculture was the backbone of our economy, agriculture and mining. So they were kicked out and replaced by indigenous people who aren't skilled. So even you could be a medical doctor at that time. Anyone and everyone, you could sign up. I could go there as a 16-year-old register and I'll get a farm kind of deal. Exactly. Okay. So you see that they see an immediate flaw right there, that you got anyone from any walk of life that is now entitled to productive land that was the backbone of the economy.
Okay.
So because of those people coming onto that land, it's not as productive anymore, right?
Yeah.
So
they don't know how to make it productive.
Exactly. So backbone of your economy slowly
degrades.
Is degrading, and we had a genius, I'm being sarcastic, a genius Reserve Bank governor at that time that he actually had no background in economics. I believe I think his highest formal education was high school. So he was a high school grad. I don't think he went to college. He was given an honorary doctorate, because that's how we roll in Africa. That's how we roll in Africa. Anyone and everyone can get a doctorate. So he took over as governor, and he violated economics 101 principle that to fix a crisis, print more money, type of thing. So that was his response to our economic crisis.
Just
print more money, and as you know, that leads to inflation.
And in your case, hyperinflation.
And due to as the years went on and on, the 2002 was when that land reform, let's take back our land thing was put into full effect. That's when a lot of the white farmers were kicked out. So because of that, you're killing people's livelihoods. Other people are seeing you do that, right? You get rattled. It could be me next, type of thing. So people started leaving. So there was a big
mass exodus.
A big brain drain. These are qualified, educated people leaving the country because they don't feel secure. They don't feel like their livelihoods are secure. So that went on, and they printed more currency, and that seriously went out of hand. It got to the point where, if you pull up on Google, if you just Google Zimbabwe inflation, and you go to the images, you'll run into a picture of a little kid that I'll call it as it is. He's you can tell that he's from the poor walk of life. That little kid right there, poor walk of life, and he's got in what functional society that does a poor man have that much currency on him?
Yeah.
And what's it called? And that at one point could barely buy you a loaf of bread.
To further describe what Zah's talking about, this kid's holding, he's like 3.5 feet tall.
Yeah, he's like 6 years old or something.
He's got 3 huge stacks of $200,000 bills. I'm looking at it.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. So you would you go to the store and that could buy you a loaf of bread 1 second, and yeah, it got to the point where we're in a line. We're in a line to we're doing our grocery shopping. I'm holding the same types of goods that you're holding. I get charged. Let's say $2 million.
Yeah,
you're the next person in line. They'll stop it, recalculate according to what's going on in the streets, the exchange rate and all that. Then when you come up to pay, it could go from 2 million to 8 million.
Holy shit!
This is like in a matter of seconds.
That's
like that. That's
how are they even like figuring that out?
That's hyperinflation that's hyperinflation right there at its best. It's crazy how it was constant adjustment, constant on the phone. With people on the street, what's the U.S. dollar going for against the Zim dollar type of thing, and it's fast calculations. At some points they would actually stop, like in the main grocery stores, they'd stop people for a little bit while they figure out the situation, the pricing situation, and all that, and continue.
So what was the vibe like amongst the citizens of Zimbabwe at this point? How did you even get your hands on that much cash? Like, was it just being printed at like banks? You would walk up with a wheelbarrow, walk away with it, or?
Oh yeah, they literally flooded. They flooded in his response to anything was just print a higher note and print a lot of it. So they literally flooded the market with they flooded the economy with currency, as you can see by that little kid holding that, and it was crazy, man. It was nuts. But that, I mean, how sustainable can that be?
It's not sustainable.
Exactly. So due to that, now arose the informal black market. So the people's market. So that's where people were either you would either trade in foreign currency, or some form of commodity that is a store of value. So like, for example, the joke I tell, which is not really a joke, which was real life at the time, is for school fees. For example, school fees. You could go to a school, the beginning of the year school. A guy would pull up in an ML, a Mercedes-Benz ML, that Mercedes-Benz SUV with like goats in the back. So livestock is a form of value.
Yeah, that's
with like goats in the back to come pay school fees. I paid for my high school. Towards the end of it, I used to pay it in gas.
In gas?
In gas for like car.
Holy shit.
Like oil and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's what happens. We're taken back to the Stone Age where we were barter trading now. No currency. Because our currency literally did not store any value, and you'd be an idiot to give well, not really an idiot, but people would refrain from giving actual foreign currency.
Yeah,
because that's those are actually foreign currency was valuable at the time.
So they would look to barter when they could.
So I'd rather give you a goat than pay in US dollars.
Yeah,
type of thing. So that went on, and so the formal system completely collapsed. So you'd go to a grocery store and find nothing on the shelves. However, if you step outside the grocery store, there'd be guys sitting outside there with every single thing that you needed for your groceries.
Really?
And yeah. So the formal system collapsed. The informal system completely thrived.
Rose in its ashes.
Oh yeah, and it was very prominent. It thrived. It did very well.
And so what year are we in right now?
So we're in. So right now we're about, let's say, the peak of it. We're like 2006. The peak of it was 2008. Printed out a $500 trillion note.
Oh my god!
Printed out that's 500 trillion with a T, by the way. That was after actually dropping. I think they dropped zeros twice. So they dropped 3 zeros and dropped another 3 zeros from our currency. So that was after dropping 6 zeros. So that 100 trillion in actual Zim currency, add another 6 zeros to that. That's what that was. I don't know if you follow that.
I followed you. Yeah, it seems like hocus pocus, just like a manipulation.
Mayhem, complete mayhem. So dropped a couple zeros. That $100 trillion note was in circulation for about 3-4 days, and then they just decided, you know what? This is not working whatsoever. This is dead. The formal economy at that point was worth about $2 billion or something crazy.
Yeah, so everybody at a certain point just put their hands up, and it's the old saying, like, these empires don't go out with a bang, they go out with a whimper. It was just sort of one day everybody was just like, this
they were
just
like
anymore.
They were done. Yeah, because I mean, they were printing money, but no one was actually using that money. People were not accepting U.S. dollars, Zim dollars anymore.
Yeah.
It was either foreign currency or gas kind of thing. So that collapsed, they scrapped it completely, so we have no formal currency of our own right now. This is now 2008. Inflation was experts will tell you inflation was 100 million% or whatever. The truth is, it was unmeasurable at that point.
Okay.
They'll pin a number to it. Whoever pins a number at that point in 2008 is lying to you. It was unmeasurable. It was so high, it was unmeasurable. So pulled the currency, scrapped it completely, adopted a multi-currency system with the main one being the U.S. dollar, because that's the currency of the world. And then we're bordered by South Africa, so South African rand. The rand was very prominent. The Botswana pula too, depending on the side of the country that you're on, was being used in some parts of the country. The British pound too. People would accept that. Not as freely as the U.S. dollar, but people would accept that. The euro the same way.
You'd bargain a little bit.
Exactly. The two main ones, the two ones that we're using were the rand and the U.S. dollar. So that's 2008 now. Things stabilized a little bit.
Yeah, and so was this like a formal multi-currency market, or was it just like a black market where people are like, all right, we're only going to
They finally formalized it. Okay. They formalized it in 2008. The black market before that existed probably. That came into existence probably like 2004 or something. So the black market was already trading in those.
So has Zimbabwe stabilized at all since you went to a multi-currency system?
So what the multi-currency system did was just stabilize things. No actual real growth. So our problem stems from the politics.
Okay.
That's where our main problem stems from, the corruption of the politicians, and from the political situation, which I probably shouldn't get too into, because you never know who's listening. It's one of those places where you can't think it. But yeah,
I'm not gonna make you go there.
No. It stemmed mainly from the political situation. So if that's not sorted out, the economy cannot thrive.
Wow. See, this is exactly why I wanted to bring you on, because I was telling you before the show, as Americans, as somebody who's born and raised here, we literally cannot fathom a system like this.
You're very fortunate. You're very fortunate to be having to have a stable political situation. Yeah,
I want to call the political situation as stable.
Trust me, it is very stable. You don't have people. You don't have Donald Trump trying to kill Elizabeth Warren just because she's a Democrat.
That's true.
That's what happens in Africa. If you're opposition in Africa, your head is taken out immediately, kind of thing. So at least in that sense, that it's a little bit stable.
I will ask you this: are you optimistic?
I mean, yeah. I mean, we're at rock bottom. We can only go one way now. We're literally at rock bottom. We can only go one way, and that's up. And I'm optimistic. There has been. So let's run through 2008 up until now. So, multi-currency system. Just to give it some. Just to give what I'm going to say some perspective. Multi-currency system is adopted. There's some political change. There was serious opposition. The first ever serious opposition party that contested elections. They came into existence in 2009, but the first one where the ruling party was actually rattled was the one in 2008, because things were bad. Then they had to bring them into what's called a unity government. It's when there was no majority. So you combine the two parties and you form a unity government. That's when things stabilized a little bit. We got a little help from the international community because of the presence of the opposition. The international community backed the opposition, so things stabilized. They came in 12 2013, we had another election because the unity government was a temporary measure for 4 years.
Okay.
But as you know, in Africa, in most African countries, the ones that aren't as politically mature like South Africa, most African countries, power only changes via the gun.
Really?
So 2013 came an election that, because that unity thing collapsed, the ruling party, of course, won. The 2013 till now has been tough. We've gotten to rock bottom. We're using the U.S. dollar. It's not our own money, so it can't facilitate any growth. We just don't have. It's not as liquid. The economy is not liquid enough to actually facilitate any real economic growth. So we've just stayed stagnant. And yeah, we just had a coup. We just had a coup this past year, towards the end of the past year. Robert Mugabe. So this was just this was actually within the ruling party. So opposition is not involved. It was factions. The ruling party politics. They broke up and all that. And two factions. Mugabe's 97 now, or 93, or however old he's in the 90s. So they were trying to plan a succession plan. He wanted to rule till he died, kind of thing. But the two factions that were fighting from within, one of them made a bad move that triggered the coup. So the army, the military was backing one of the factions, and the one that was not backed by the military made a bad strategic move, and that triggered the whole military coup. Mugabe was ousted, and this guy that's favored by the military was put into power by the military, and he rewarded some of those guys that held the coup for him. Now they hold government positions.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
I said, I can't even fathom.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Like the amount of strength that I feel that the Zimbabweans have to have after going through all this.
That's one thing. We are resilient and we survive.
Yeah. So what? So you still have family back in Zimbabwe?
Yeah. So I'm a Zimbabwean as they come. I was born and I'm just here temporarily for my studies. And
you're gonna bring the brain back.
Eventually, who knows when? Eventually, but I'm hoping the environment allows for I'm hoping with this change, this guy, it's still a wait and see period with this new leader to see how he truly is. He's only been in power for like a month or two. So I'm hoping he provides an environment that allows for the talent to come back and actually help the country out.
Before we get into Bitcoin stuff, one thing I'm more interested to talk about is like, how has the internet affected anything like down there, like from an information spreading perspective? Has it helped at all, do you think?
So it definitely has. The internet the use of the internet is growing a lot.
Does it help
exponentially?
Does it help delegitimize sort of the ruling factions?
Yes. So the big thing that people down there now use. And I'm looking for the term. The big thing that people use down there is WhatsApp.
Okay.
WhatsApp that was just recently bought by Facebook, and that's really allowed. That's democratized how information is spread. So these WhatsApp groups, the ruling party propaganda, the media machine, will say this one thing, but you'll get the truth, like in WhatsApp groups and stuff like that. So rumors, the coup and stuff. That's actually how I kept up with what's going on.
Okay.
It's through people sending you stuff through WhatsApp. So the internet, it really does help. It has helped a lot. It's not really. The use isn't really as widespread as it's in the cities. Yes, everyone has access to it and all that, but the rural areas are still playing catch up, and that's where the majority of our population is, in the rural areas.
How I'm ignorant to this. I'm fucking ignorant American.
No.
How big is Zimbabwe? How big is the population?
So last time we had a census before the brain drain. The last census we actually had was in 2000, the year 2000, and there was about 13 million of us.
Okay.
I would say with the brain drain and people leaving and stuff like that, right now I'd put the population probably at about 8 million.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 million people.
Wow.
And so about 3 million of those live in the major cities. The rest live
rurally.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's why I love this podcast. That's why I love being able to talk to people like you. We're stuck in. I'll admit, I'm stuck in this bubble in the northeast part of America, and you really. And that's why I love the internet. I wanted to bring that up, is because it sort of breaks these boundaries and creates empathy and lets you hear these stories and say, "Holy shit! How can we make it so their lives are more similar to ours?" And
it definitely is breaking a lot of boundaries. It's helping out a lot with the communication and all that. The internet is people love it down there. People. It's just at this stage, it's not a widespread commodity, so it's a little bit expensive. So not the average Joe can't afford to be on the internet kind of deal.
Okay.
But as it grows and the influence of it grows, it's becoming cheaper now and more accessible and all that type of stuff.
Okay. M-Pesa, is that used in Zimbabwe at all?
That's East Africa.
East Africa.
No, I actually don't know. I've heard. I've been meaning to actually look into M-Pesa, but I heard it's a very innovative payment thing, right? That they
it works via burner phones, from what I understand.
Yeah. I don't know much about it because that's in Kenya.
Yeah.
It's mainly I think it originated from Kenya, but I've been meaning to. Barstool's keeping me busy. That's my excuse.
I just showed some of my ignorance. That's the other thing Americans don't realize is just how big Africa is.
Oh yeah, like I have no idea what's going on in Kenya. Yeah. It's huge. Zimbabwe is like the size of Florida. It's probably the same size as Texas, or just a bit smaller than the state of Texas, and that's a tiny country in Africa, by the way. Yeah. Zimbabwe's tiny.
Really?
Yeah. It's a tiny country in Africa. It's like almost the size of Texas.
Damn, this is a lot. Like, I'm
very happy to have you in the studio right now. Happy to be here.
So yeah, again, I wanted to bring you in because obviously Zimbabwe has the monetary crisis. I'm into Bitcoin. Yep. I talk about Bitcoin here. You hear things on the internet about Zimbabweans taking advantage of Bitcoin, but obviously it seems like not every Zimbabwean has access to the internet. They probably don't have the amount of money to funnel into Bitcoin. So what have you heard? I know you've heard some stuff about Bitcoin in Zimbabwe. What's the word on the street there? Are people using it? Do they find it helpful? Can you help give us some color there?
So because we don't have our own currency, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, because we don't have our own currency, there's a shortage of actual hard cash, right? So it's in our culture. Our culture so far, we haven't converted into like the card system and all that. Though that technology is present in the cities, it's just a cultural thing. We haven't transitioned from hard cash because you can't trust in Africa. You can't trust the person that's right in front of you. Exactly. Yeah. So that card, people don't trust that. They need like that hard cash kind of thing. So because we don't have enough of that circulating, people are looking for alternative ways to store value. So it's a trust thing. You deposit your money, your hard-earned money, you deposit it into a bank. You go to the bank the next day, you try withdraw your money, they tell you they don't have any currency in the system. So that's your money stuck in the bank.
Yeah.
You go there, they might give you $5 in like quarters type of thing.
Really?
So because of that situation where you hand in your money and you can't get it back from the banks, that trust has been broken with that.
Quickly.
That's why stuff like Bitcoin now is kind of coming into play now, but it's not fully accessible to the people in the rural areas and all that. But people in the cities are beginning slowly to use it.
Really?
People in the cities, I know a lot of my friends that have Bitcoin accounts in there. They're using it to trade in Zimbabwe to facilitate that gap, that void that was left with by not having enough currency in the economy.
So how are they using it? Are they using it as like a store of value, as a savings account, so they can?
No, they're actually using it for what I believe Bitcoin was made for.
Okay.
For actual transactions.
All right, so let's get into this.
Yeah, so they're actually using it to try buy stuff and sell stuff, but this is not on the formal. This is in the informal market.
Okay.
In the formal thing, they still accept the formal forms of payment, the cash, cards, but there's no cash, and people don't have money in their banks because they don't trust them. Sorry.
And no, I'm sorry for interrupting you. This is a very interesting topic right now because that's a huge debate going on in the Bitcoin world. Is it possible to be a transactional currency right now because the nature of the protocol is so that you only have a limited amount of space per block, and when you have more people coming on the network that want to use Bitcoin and transact in it, there's more demand to get your transaction in each block, which sends the fees higher, which makes it harder to use as a transactional currency on the protocol level. So that's one thing. I would say it's causing a lot of confusion right now because a lot of people want it to be that transactional currency, and we're finding out that the nature of the protocol, just the physics of it, is making it harder unless we increase the blocks, which centralizes the system a little more. So you're sort of caught between a rock and a hard place. And like we were talking about before the show, we're 9 years into Bitcoin. It was very easy to use as a transactional currency until like the latest bubble when a bunch of people came on. The price went up, and the Satoshi fees U.S. dollar fees went up precipitously because of that. I'll admit that point blank. But but there's solutions being worked on the second layer, Lightning being one of them, where it's trying to help create that transactional layer where fees are as minimized as possible. So have you heard some your buddies from back in Zimbabwe? Have they talked about this fee problem at all, or?
They not really. So the thing is with us, because we don't have any other choice. We, people here to transact, you got your US dollars type of thing. Because we don't have any other choice, people
willing to use the fee?
I don't think they even pay attention to it.
Okay.
Because they just need something to be able to facilitate a transaction. We can't go back to that, I give you a gallon of oil for you to give me this type of thing.
Give you an education.
Exactly. I give you a gallon of oil for you to work my fields type of thing. So people don't actually, I don't think they actually even know the economics or how Bitcoin actually works.
They just know it works to a certain extent.
Exactly. They've been told, not really been told. They have an idea of what it is, of course, but they're using it to facilitate those to fill that void that cash is left and all that. So that fees and stuff, they don't even pay attention to that.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
It's a beautiful time to be alive.
It certainly is.
It certainly is. Things might be more chaotic, obviously, for you. They're getting more chaotic here in the States, but the emergence of the internet and now an internet of money is creating incredible possibilities.
Oh yeah, it's alleviating so much. It's because now what Bitcoin has done for some people is we don't have to go through those people that we don't trust anymore.
That's the whole.
We don't have to deal with I don't trust anybody in that government. And I'm neither this party nor that party. I just don't trust any politician. Period.
You trust your instincts.
There you go. I don't trust any politician. Period.
I'm the same way. I don't trust the U.S. politicians.
And especially with the way we've been burnt with our economy, all of a sudden, like for example, that whole they just converted the cash that the banks the money that you had in the bank in that 2008 period was just converted into U.S. dollars and is just worthless. It was converted into like cents type of thing. Yeah, it's because of moves like that you end up not trusting your government and whoever's in charge of the monetary system and all that, and that's the void that Bitcoin has come in and is filling now.
You only have to trust math. Math's pretty hard to not trust.
Oh yeah,
it's been proven to work.
Math is for generations too. For generations,
for millennia.
Many things have come and gone. You've had companies that have come and they're gone now, but math has been there since the beginning of time.
And it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Oh yeah, it's just becoming more and more prominent as we as we go out throughout the lives. So yeah, now there's big opportunity. I feel like Bitcoin. This is exactly the situations that Zimbabwe is in. Is exactly what Bitcoin was made for.
And that's the that's the thing that I try to get through people's minds when I'm describing. They're like, why do we need this? Like, the US dollar works, Visa works. Like, why do I need Bitcoin? I was like, we don't need Bitcoin.
There you go. Just take a trip to Africa, and you'll see why you need Bitcoin.
So let's get into this a little bit. How can we help specifically Zimbabweans out? Like, how? I mean, I'm not gonna say like what do you think is the best course of action to help pull Zimbabwe up out of this sort of rut that you guys are in right now?
Not from a Bitcoin perspective.
From any perspective, yeah.
Oh, okay. So from any perspective, to be honest, it's on us. It's on us Zimbabweans, on the people. It's just it all comes down to one thing: corruption.
Yeah.
So if you can weed that out, as I said, this was when the British left us. We were the most mineral rich, one of the most mineral rich countries on the planet. Still are. We actually just recently discovered. I think it was in 2000 or 2001. I forgot when exactly. Diamond fields in the eastern part of our country.
Oh, really?
When the geologists, or whatever they call them, the guys that do the quantity surveying or whatever the geologists, I'll just call them geologists for simplicity's sake.
I think that's correct.
There you go. When the geologists came and they did their thing, they found that that area of the country had close to, I think they might have said like the second largest diamond reserve at the time.
Holy shit.
In the world.
And
you tell me how, if you as a country, and that's just one mineral, I'm not mentioning gold and platinum and all the other stuff that we have. You tell me how, as a country, if you have so-called the second biggest diamond reserve on the planet, how are you poor? Especially when you're trying to feed 8 million mouths. How are you poor? So it all comes down to corruption. If we can weed that out of people.
So what happened? Was the government taking it, selling it, and keep the money on the side?
The president's very rich. Well, not our people. Yeah, the president.
I can cut out.
No, it's all right. No, the president and all them, the politicians are very, very, very wealthy. You got people with mansions and property and assets globally. It's like if they came out and said that our former president Mugabe, who's now out of power, is worth $70 billion, I'd believe it.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit!
That's
fucking
how much.
Man.
Greed. That's like Bill Gates money, and that's not even, if you look up on Forbes, he doesn't even appear on anything like that.
That's like the greed is dumbfounding.
Oh yeah, being a politician in Africa it's big money right there.
And being a politician anywhere is a job for a psychopath, in my opinion.
Yeah. So you let us weed out the corruption. Once we've weeded that out, then the international community can step in and help us. With providing access to like funds and stuff like that, loan facilities and all that. So that's how the international community could help.
Just financially, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I don't want to sound like some white knight, like I'm gonna come out.
This is I'm loving this experience.
Yeah.
Fire away. Whatever's at top of your mind, just fire away.
Top of my mind right now.
We can answer those questions.
What's Zimbabwe's favorite sport? Soccer, cricket?
Yeah, soccer. Soccer's the biggest sport.
Yeah.
Soccer's the biggest sport amongst the population, amongst the elite. It's stuff like, the elite will play. So everybody will play soccer. The elite will do stuff like cricket. They'll play cricket, rugby. Rugby's pretty big. Cricket's pretty big. Tennis. Swimming, that type of stuff.
What do you miss most about Zimbabwe?
Oh, that's tough. The politically correct answer would probably be my family. But yeah, I miss the food, I miss the people, the family. It's just the whole culture.
Yeah, what's the food like down there?
Awesome. I love it. It's all organic. I actually funny story. I had no idea what the word organic meant until I came here. Like I did not know the word organic was not in my vocabulary until I came here. Because we're not rich enough to buy chemicals to shoot up our animals, and
you might be lucky because of that. Because I would argue that that's only made us unhealthier. You look at the heart disease rate and the diabetes rate, the diabetes rate in this country. It's astronomical.
So I the chicken drumstick was like this big. I come over here in America and you can get one. You can get one that is like this huge. It's crazy. So yeah, no, the food, people, I guess just the culture, everything about it. The weather's awesome too. It's not the snow BS and all that. It's beautiful weather all year round.
What
actually now that I'm here in New York, I've come to really appreciate the weather. So the weather is it's flying up the rankings.
So you moved to the States 8 years ago now. How's this changed your perspective living in America for 8 years?
Opens my mind. It's
how so?
It really does. Same way with what I've been telling you now. Sometimes you're like, I didn't know much about America. Well, I had been fortunate enough to come visit and all that, but you don't learn anything about a culture on 3-week vacations.
No,
because you're stuck in Celebration, Florida, at Disney theme parks and stuff like that. That whole 3 weeks and all that. So
that's probably the most vapid part of our culture. So.
Yeah, no. So it's been a complete eye opener. I go from in high school classes, learning with people that look like me, talk like me, act like me and all that, and the occasional one or two white guys, the occasional one or two Indian guys, to in a class with a guy from Kuwait, from Venezuela, from Bolivia and all that. So it's being here really has opened my mind.
Yeah, especially here in New York City. Like you walk outside and you hear five different languages.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, no one speaks English here. It's incredible. It's like people, you hear different languages and all that.
You hear a bunch of boneheaded Americans that don't like that, but I love it. I love the culture. I love New York City specifically, being able to go experience different cultures in the city. It's possible if you want to do it, if you're adventurous enough.
It really is a melting pot.
I feel like there's an awakening going on around the world. I feel like we're all coming together, realizing exactly. You born in Zimbabwe, me born in Philadelphia. We're not that different.
Wait.
We have the same needs.
There you go.
The same Maslow hierarchy of needs. I mean,
you're taking me back to what's it called? What was that? Management, motivation. What was it? Safety, security, social, clothing, whatever. Self-esteem at the top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Taking me back to college. That's awesome. But yeah, no. And just to piggyback, not really piggyback, but to the Iran thing triggered a thought in my mind. To bring it back to crypto, since this is a crypto podcast. Another very good use for Bitcoin is for countries like Iran, North Korea, that are under sanctions.
Under sanctions, yeah.
So, and Zimbabwe too is under sanctions. Well, not the country, but individuals in Zimbabwe under sanctions. So in situations like that, that can help you still be prosperous and, be
money
able
out
to
of the country.
be able to negotiate those.
And whether people like it or not, that's a use case.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, the story has two sides. So what you Americans think is just might not be considered just as by the Iranians, kind of thing.
What we did to Iran was not just at all. I will come out and say it.
Yeah,
the Iranian Revolution, us putting in what was that in the 70s?
The 79. Was it 79, 78? Oh yeah, yo, the role you played. Some may justify it as just, some.
I would call it disgraceful. Because you grow up and you hear these narratives in the media where they're like, oh, Iran's the devil, blah, 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 blah. They're going to nuke us. They're trying to kill us. And then you meet an Iranian and he's a normal person like you. Like I had a class, summer of 2014, I did a design boot camp, and there was an Iranian in the Chicago. He went to University of Illinois for college, and he was doing this design boot camp with me, and I had those preconceived notions. Oh my God, anybody from Iran's like bad, like just from what you hear in the media growing up. And then you sit there and you talk to them. It's like, holy shit, like this person's just a person, and they're like me. And a lot of ways.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because just when I moved over here, I met a man from Afghanistan. So my perspective of Afghanistan, we get access to your television. So like the CNNs and all that. That's if you can afford it, and what's it called in Zimbabwe. So my perspective of a guy from Afghanistan, was not as, was painted from the American perspective kind of deal, from the propaganda because of 9/11 type of thing. And I had this picture of what people from Afghanistan are meant to be because of the external media influences and all that. And I met this man from there, and I'll never forget it. This guy is probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And we talked for about like 2 hours or so, and I was like, holy snap, he's actually they're actually human. They're pretty nice.
Exactly. We're all humans. That's what crazy. Everybody has to realize is like, and that's another thing I try to do this podcast is create empathy. It's like, we're all in this together. We're all like, I mean, there definitely are bad people in the world, but you have to go back to that adage that most people are good. It just, I truly believe that. I'd need to travel more.
Yeah, you should come to Zimbabwe.
I would love to come to Zimbabwe.
Do it. Yeah, no.
When are you going back next?
That's the thing. That's whenever I'm there, you could come. Donnie is interested in coming. You know Donnie, right?
Yeah, Donnie. I was talking about Donnie. I want to go to Donnie to see some of the Chinese mining farms. The Bitcoin mining farms.
Yeah, that's where they're at.
Yeah,
that's where a lot of them are at. And all that. The warehouses. I watched a documentary.
I would love to do a story with Donnie down there. I think we could get some good content out of that.
That actually would be awesome. I saw that. But yeah, no, it's a pretty sweet place. You should I think.
I'm not well traveled. It's one of my goals as I enter the second half of my 20s is to get out more.
Do it. Yeah. Do it. See, I got a question for you now in relations to. I can ask questions, right?
Yeah.
In relation to what's it called? That the blockchain technology. That's what people are actually the in the nose, for lack of a better term. Sorry, the in the nose. I couldn't think of anything that's another thing that's actually tough. Side note, by the way, English is not my first language, so I think in my native language, then actually have to translate it. So a lot of the time, I won't be able to pick up the words. So I apologize in advance for that.
No, another thing Americans don't realize is that most of us only have to learn one language.
Oh yeah, trust me, language is it's very hard to translate. It's very hard to translate. But yeah, the blockchain technology applications. I forgot what I saw. I think it was like last week or 2 weeks ago, which I think would actually be a very good application for it in Zimbabwe. The ledger system, and I was actually thinking of a story related to my grandmother, actually, that ledger system, how if you put like a record, it then creates like a code for that. Then when you put another record for that thing, it wraps it into that record, and both of them are now stored on that key or that chaining. What's it called? Is it chaining?
The blockchain. So the way the blockchain works.
There we go. Here we go.
With Bitcoin specifically, so every 10 minutes a block is made in Bitcoin. And the way Bitcoin works, to create a block, what you have is miners around the world basically putting their computing power to prove everything that's happened on the Bitcoin blockchain up until the latest block. And then they compete with computing power to batch transactions in the last 10 minutes, hash it into what's called a block, and the miner that does that gets the block reward, which is Bitcoin. Right now it's 12.5 Bitcoin per block. And what happens when a block is created is, yes, it hashes that data and it's incorruptible. You can never rewrite it, and it's a ledger that can't be overwritten. You would need a crazy amount of computing power at this point to rewrite the Bitcoin blockchain. It's not economically sound. It wouldn't be a good attack. So this is the first time in human history we've ever had a censorship-resistant ledger, and that's the true innovation with Bitcoin, is the censorship resistance, is that nobody can change it. Nobody can. And what can help out Zimbabwe is that they can't change the money supply, the amount of Bitcoins that are created. So nobody's ever going to be able to say, hey, I mean, technically it is possible, but the likelihood of it happening is so low that it's negligent. I want to say negligent, but it is very highly unlikely that you would ever get, because to change the amount of Bitcoin, you would have to get most people on the network to agree to change it, and there's such an intolerant minority that is only in Bitcoin because of the 21 million Bitcoin cap that's unlikely to ever happen.
So what I applied that to is a little situation that happened to my grandmother. My grandmother owned she's now passed, unfortunately, but she owned a farm.
Mm-hmm.
She owned a farm, and towards her retirement, she started renting out. I think in her retirement years. Was it actually when she was? No, yeah, it was after she had retired. She rented that out as a form of income to someone else,
mm-hmm.
right? Then, as she got older, she wanted to sell it. But however, the guy that she had rented it to, this was over like a 10-year period. This guy was renting it from her for like 10 years and all that.
Mm-hmm.
She, you know how old ladies are. They developed this is my son, developed a level of trust and all that. And it's time that now she wants to sell it. You know, she goes and she goes to the farm, because she never actually used to go check up on it.
Uh-huh.
She goes to the farm. You know, it's like, all right, to go tell him, hey, this is what's going to happen. She sees that it's not even the dude that she had put there. It was someone else that said that he was renting it from him.
So
no, he had bought it from him. So what he had done was
pretended like he owned it.
Exactly, and he was able to create actual title deeds that were
forged?
He created them. They were forged, of course,
mm-hmm.
but I don't know if he bribed the officials. I don't know what happened, but they were actually approved and stamped, and the transfer of the title of this fake title was approved. So this guy now owned it. So she's standing here and she's like, wait, hold on. Wait a minute. This is the title deed right here.
Holy shit. And
right here is the title deed. This guy whips out, is like, no, you're wrong. This is the title deed. So it's the same address, same whatever, 2 title deeds. So now my mom has been fighting this court case for my grandmother's passed, but my mom has been fighting the court case for like 5 years now.
Holy shit.
So that's where that whole blockchain uniqueness could be applied to a situation like that. And I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's one thing. That's actually one of like, I think one of the most practical applications.
Yeah, I love the blockchain.
Not right now, but as we evolve, it's going to get to a point, yes, where you can hash that title into the Bitcoin blockchain and say, cryptographically prove that you owned it at one time.
Exactly.
And to hand over that title on the blockchain, you would have to the dude who stole the farm from your grandmom would have to get access to her private key.
To the key, yep.
Which is unlikely if she has good security, and so that would be impossible if titles were exchanged on the blockchain.
So when I learned, I'll put my hand up. I admit I wasn't a believer, but when I learned about that, and when the whole crypto and Bitcoin and all that, but when I learned about that whole, when I watched the documentary and learned about the chaining or that process that you were explaining, that's when I was like, okay, all right. There actually might be a use for this thing. Yeah,
censorship. That's the innovation, is the censorship resistance. Is that no Joe Schmo can forge a Bitcoin or forge a hash. Like, it's all cryptographically proven with math. Like we were saying, you can trust math.
And I don't think people at this stage get it.
No, they don't.
Because I can get a printer, that printer outside there. I can get it and slide my $100 bill in there and print that out, and be able to go buy some sandwiches from the deli. And
you probably won't be able to do that, but there is a forge.
You get the idea. You get the idea.
There is forged money out there.
You can forge currency and all. That's the idea. Of course, I can't do it here, but that application I thought was very awesome, and I hope
you had your aha moment
from Oh yeah, I wasn't a believer at all. I was like, Bitcoin, it's a fraud.
It's a mind fuck. That's what it is. Because we've literally, like I was saying before we hopped on the show, there's only been so many times where technologies like this have come along that people don't even realize what to look for, where the innovation is. And I don't think people have fully grasped the innovation that is censorship resistance in a decentralized system. It is going to wholesale change the course of human history from here on out.
Oh yeah, I really hope. The thing about human nature is that we're resistant to change.
Mm-hmm.
This is like, this technology is
well.
There's the internet, right? You know, there's the internet, and now there's Bitcoin. It's
Bitcoin's like another layer.
It's the next thing.
And that's one thing, again, I'm trying to do with this podcast is help people realize that the pace of change that we've experienced in our lifetimes is unlike any other amount of change that any other human has experienced at any point in time. So we have things changing around us at such a quick pace that like our monkey brains are like running around like, what the hell's going on? What's going on? Like, and we can't get our bearings unless we take a step back. And all right, I think learning about history and how the world has evolved over time and how technologies have affected the course of history is very important. And I would encourage anybody out there to study the history of the internet and how life was before it and how it has evolved and how quickly it has evolved after, because that's one thing people don't take the time to stop
and think back. Yeah, no,
exactly,
not at all.
You're just born into it and you start running. You
forget before the iPhone you had that Nokia 3310 that could only favorite game. Still is one of my favorite games of all time. Yeah, no, when you actually stop to take and look back at where we started, it's incredible.
It's a great time to be alive.
Yeah, no, blockchain is really it's solving that problem, that trust problem, and I hope we can, as a society, we can embrace it sooner rather than later. Though it does take time for societal shifts.
It does, but this is a good first step. Conversations like this help us come to that realization.
There we go.
And I think this is a great spot to end the episode. Za, I want to thank you for coming on. Where can people find out more about you?
On Twitter, on Twitter, the Midget Zimbo on Twitter. I mean, I guess that's where I interact. I give my opinions on there on things. I mean, I'll talk a little cricket and soccer. I'm sorry to the American fan base, but you see, I talk about things that I'm passionate on there, and
that's important to be passionate.
Oh yeah, no, but thank you for having me. This was really awesome.
I was very excited all week to have this conversation. I'm really happy with how it went.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Marty.
And on that, peace and love. Woo!
There we go. That was fun.
Dude, thank you.
When you said 30 minutes, I was like, wait, is this guy crazy? How long was it?
No, it's 6 minutes.
That was awesome. That was